lot of political heat over the coming days. We debated tonight's developments with the SNP MSP Karen Adam and the Conservative MSP Rachel Hamilton. Rachel Hamilton, the First Minister tonight has called this a full frontal attack on Scottish democracy.
Well, I don't agree with the First Minister. It's no surprise that the First Minister wants to make a constitutional issue out of a very, very sensitive issue. I'm very disappointed that she has done that. I am very happy that the Secretary of State of Scotland has intervened, because the effect of the operation of the law is a reserved matter, and clearly the operation of the reform in Scotland is going to have significant impacts across the United Kingdom. And the Secretary of State has received legal advice and taken advice from many organisations to come to this point.
Well, let me put that to Karen Adam. Claims tonight, Karen Adam, that the Scottish Parliament was warned that this would happen.
I just have to say that this is a full frontal attack on democracy. It absolutely is. And I feel slightly embarrassed for Rachel Hamilton having to come on here and defend the indefensible. It really is. This legislation was passed through Parliament by a majority of MSPs who were voted in by the Scottish public. And I know that there are many cross-party who are utterly appalled at what has happened this evening.
OK, but on that point, Karen,
in Rachel Hamilton's party too.
On that point, Karen, about the Scottish Parliament was warned that this could happen, that it might cross over the UK Parliament legislation.
Warning that this is going to happen shouldn't stop the Scottish Parliament passing legislation that we were elected to do. I was on a manifesto commitment to deliver gender recognition reform, and that's what we did at Parliament by a majority of MSPs. To deny democracy to Scotland is utterly appalling. We see that from the Tory UK government anyway, and it's no surprise, but it still is. We're looking at a travesty, and everybody in Scotland should be concerned, because if this may be the first time that they've used a Section 35 order, but will it be the last? And I think that's what we have to keep in mind.
On this point, Rachel Hamilton, this action, as Karen Adam has said, has never been used before in the history of devolution. Are trans people, as being said this evening, are trans people being used as a political football to make a point?
Absolutely not. This is not about politicking. It is very much about the legislation. We heard many people give warnings during the passage of the bill. We asked questions to the First Minister and the Cabinet Secretary in the Chamber about the effect on the operation of the Equality Act, particularly in areas of single-sex spaces, female shortlists, female-only schools, and the impact on sex-based rights. But the Cabinet Secretary continued to reassure us, despite not answering the specific questions and concerns that women's organisations had. And Nicola Sturgeon even said... But
that's forgive me, Rachel Hamilton, but that was part of the debate within Scotland, and it was passed by a majority in the Scottish Parliament, despite all these concerns that you mentioned. So I go back to my point. Are trans people being used as a political football to make a political point by using something that's never been used before?
No, because the Secretary of State has explicitly said in his letter to the First Minister that this is not about politics, this is purely about legislation. And throughout the passage of the bill, it was a respectful debate. We want to improve the experience for trans people, and the Secretary of State agrees with that point.
Karen Adam, if you're so sure that this doesn't cut across UK laws, then even though the UK government are intent on blocking it, you can take it to the Supreme Court, and you must, if you're confident, expect to win, and it'll go through anyway.
Well, hopefully so. And I know that the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, will absolutely be fighting to uphold democracy in Scotland and to fight the halt on democracy by the UK government. We see what they're doing that with the strikers' rights at the moment as well. And it just seems to be this absolute assault on democracy across the UK. But here we're seeing it laid bare for the Scottish people to see. And I think that's something that should concern us deeply.
Very, very briefly, if you will, Rachel Hamilton, what would you say to trans people in Scotland tonight who may be upset or anxious?
I think it's important that people respect trans people, that they are not stigmatised, and that we want to improve their experience. But at the same time, the SNP should have listened to the concerns of women and how this will affect the operation within the Equality Act across the United Kingdom.
Rachel Hamilton, Karen Adam, thank you both for joining us in Scotland tonight. The move to block the gender recognition